Welcome back to another episode here on the Enneagram at Work podcast. I am one of your hosts today, founder and managing director here at Enneagram MBA, and I am joined by our co-host, which if you have been listening to the podcast, you have heard from him before, Demetrius D. Parker, joining us from out of, I guess, Denver. I was going to say beautiful Colorado, but in the Denver
Colorado.
area. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I always over romanticize moving there and living in the mountains somewhere. So
It's
he's gonna.
beautiful.
I know it is. I know. So Dee is joining us, and today we are continuing on with our coworker chemistry series where we're matching up various types. As I've said in other episodes, this is one of the most, and I'd be curious, Dee, I'm going to let you chime in here in a second if you get this question, but I find that after people are asking the questions about kind of which type am I, this or that, like the second most common question is, well, what types are the most compatible, or how does this type or this type work? So that is the intention behind this series. And today we are getting into the type 2 and the type 3. And I've asked Dee specifically because he is somebody who identifies most as a type 3 and then has a very important type 2 in his life in addition to his professional work. So welcome, Dee. Thanks for being here for this one.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Always welcome. Happy actually to be here. So thank you for the invite.
Yes. Okay. So, and I do just want to say, Dee does a lot of leadership coaching. He does a lot of workshop facilitation as well. He is one of our visiting facilitators here at Enneagram MBA, and then he has his own practice where, for those of you who are, you have, and please add to this, Dee, but DISC, other personality tools, he is wonderful at helping you integrate the Enneagram into some of the things you're already doing.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So I work with DISC, 16 types, Clifton strengths, any of those other. I get it. It's like an onion, right? So all those different layers, and then be able to look at those along with the Enneagram and how we show up as leaders, professionals, and partners.
Okay. And people can understand a little bit more over at your website, trustleadershipcollective.com.
That's correct.
Okay.
.org.
Oh, .org. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
.org.
Yeah.
Well, we'll link it. We'll link it correctly in the show notes.
Right.
Okay, so let's kick it off. I am actually going to have you not describe yourself as a type 3. I'm going to share the type 3 and then you gut check me on it. But how, just as a refresher for those of you, for those of us who are just need a quick refresher, how would you describe the Enneagram type 2?
So type two, the striving to feel connected and appreciated. I mean, I would say the core drive for those folks are to feel loved, needed, genuinely valued by the people that are around them. That striving shows up, as a warmth, attentiveness, and almost instinctive move towards whatever the people around them seem to need. They have a really good ability to know what that is. And it's not people pleasing for its own sake, most of the time, I will say. It's a deep belief that relationships are the foundation of everything else, and how they're built upon. Again, underneath that, the other side is that fear that they are only lovable when they are useful.
Mm.
And then without giving, they won't be chosen. So that's what I was saying about that other side, where it's like, okay, um, for me, working with that style, having to be careful not to get stuck in a give to get type of relationship.
Yes, 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 yes. And sometimes they're called the helper. Um,
Yes.
and it's a little bit deeper than that. It sounds like what you're saying. It's more about I want to help so that I can be connected type of thing.
Yes. Yeah. Again, like they have a really good ability to understand what people need. When I'm coaching that type, though, I share, yes, there is that, but also people aren't always ready for what they need. And a lot of times people are in a space of what I want versus what I need.
Oh,
Um, and being able to be able to discern how to bring in that need by still also hearing what people want.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Is that help wanted? Yes.
Exactly. Do I really want to know what I need right now, or do I
Yeah.
just want what I want?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay. So, and twos are such wonderful teammates. They can make really amazing leaders, just like any type. I don't know that we always like appreciate the strengths that they bring in the leadership space, but there are so many um, that they bring, and we need those on our team. Okay, so our type threes, striving to feel outstanding, really driven by the need to be successful, and I would say sometimes to be seen as successful, wanting to go far, wanting to go fast, check the goal off, check the task off. Um, Very goal oriented, very adaptable. Sometimes they're, and I'll be curious if you have any real life experience, like what your real life experience with this is, Dee. But sometimes they're known as the shapeshifter or the chameleon because they do have this ability to kind of meet the moment or meet the person in front of them and show up whatever that moment or person requires of them, which can be such a wonderful skill. Very, very politically savvy, very like organizational awareness, political networking awareness type of thing. They're really good at, similar to a type two. I think they notice people, but it's more kind of reading the room as an entirety to figure out who do I need to be, what is required of me to be successful to meet my goal for this particular situation. Um, and it's definitely not most of the time I don't think it's coming from an ego place. It's just this is kind of how you're wired. This is kind of your first instinct. And so kind of the story for our threes is to what Dee said about the twos, I'm valuable when I'm being useful. Threes have learned, hey, I'm valuable as long as I'm offering value
Achieving.
and achieving.
Exactly. 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 Yeah, no, to your question. So a lot of what you shared, spot on. Actually, I would say most of what you shared, spot on. Um, for threes working, us coming into that space and how we operate, it is a lot of wanting to bring value, reading the room, to your point of being able to read a room and then morph into what is needed in that space. That can be a double-edged sword for us. Is both a gift and a curse, depending on one, I guess, how it's done. A lot of times in my work, I talk about a lot of times it's not the what, but the how. And then also just who's on the other side, because some people see that as us not being genuine.
Mm-hmm.
So we get, a lot of folks like, ooh, I'm not sure how to interact with you because, in this one space, I saw you and I was with you and you showed up like this. And in this other space, you showed up like this.
Yeah.
And from my perspective, and I tell not in a defensive way, for me, I look at it as effective communication.
Mm.
Um, I was, and I think you know this about me, like I was born and raised in DC in the hood. If I, in certain spaces in the hood, if I go and I'm speaking and I'm being very articulate, I'm probably going to get robbed. And I'm probably not going to leave with the valuables that I came with. Versus if I'm there and I'm like, yo, what's up? And I'm speaking in a language where they can understand that I am from where they're from and I understand what they're going through,
Mm.
it's going to be a totally different experience. And the same thing if I walk into the boardroom. If I walk into the boardroom, I'm like, yo, these
Oh, here.
it may not go so well. I mean, there may be some people who are like, I love his energy, and there's going to be some
Yeah.
people like, ooh, that is not the way we perform here. So that's the way I look at it is
Okay.
how can we be effective in those moments? Because to your point, we're trying to get things done. And so we want to be able to honestly, in some ways, be efficient
Mm-hmm.
as well as effective in doing that. And typically it's being able to meet people where they are in that sense that helps that efficiency, which then helps the effectiveness.
Okay. Okay. I don't know if you've experienced this. In my personal experience, I find that threes tend to have the most initial resistance or skepticism when we go into an Enneagram workshop because they're like, what does this have to do with my goals? And it's taking time away from my client work or my project. Like, how is this directly related? And I think like if I had to guess, I'd say, oh, sixes are the most skeptical of, just stereotyping, but it's threes because of what you said I have found anyway, because it's like I'm always wanting to get to the next goal, check off the next thing. And something like an Enneagram workshop, it's like, wait a minute, how does this connect in the beginning? I think we win most of them over by the end, but in the beginning there's
Yeah,
some
if they can
skepticism.
see it's effective, right? For
Mhm.
threes, and I would say threes, sixes, eights, but all for different reasons, right?
Mhm.
Sixes are just naturally skeptical. Eights are, why did you make me come here? And threes, to your point, I have other things to do.
Yeah.
How does this help me? And I think that's why it's easy to win threes over probably than the other two, because for threes, it's a they then see like, oh, I see how I can use this now
Yeah.
to be more effective. So it's, so I would say threes, although they may come in a little bit more with that, I don't want to be here energy, it is so much easier to win them over because once they see how it can help them be effective and get things done, it's a buy-in.
Then they're ready. Okay. Okay.
Hmm.
Good tip for those of us who are working with our a fellow type 3. Okay, so we're going to talk about some of the differences with these two. And it is interesting because I think when you just read like a short description, it's like, wow, these two are so different. But at times I see people like there are so many similarities, and people sometimes struggle like, am I a two or am I a three? Or am I a three or am I really a two? So those are always interesting. So there are some differences, there are some complementary differences, and then there are some similarities that can be such a strength when the two of these types are working together. What do you see as one strength um, in your
Well,
experience?
yeah, for strengths, I would say, first of all, I feel like both types want to contribute. Um, in different ways, but one, I think they both want to contribute, and I think that's a strength coming in. If you're thinking about you're working with these two people working together, come into a space and both wanting to contribute, because sometimes we all know there's some folks who don't want to contribute. So they're coming into the space of like, how can I, what does this look like? How can I, bring some contribution to this space?
Yeah, and I want to be valuable, but again,
Hmm.
kind of a different way, or maybe a little bit different definition of that valuable, what valuable means.
Exactly.
Um, and then one that I think is just again, very stereotypical, but when I talk about the twos, I usually am saying something like they're very relationship oriented first, very good at building rapport. And then we have the type threes who are a little bit more task oriented and goal oriented. Doesn't mean either one can't be the other, but they just kind of like initially. And so, what I think can be such a powerful pairing is when the two is bringing that relationship building, rapport building strength, and then the three is bringing the let's get it done, let's hit our goals, let's make things happen. And so you can both get things done and bring people along with you to being outstanding and successful.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I would probably honestly add on threes also, just like twos, threes also want the relationship, but they want the relationships for different reasons.
Okay. Say more.
So twos, that relationship is that they can be there and they can help that person, give that person what they feel again they need, right? So they can be in that space and be like, ooh, I can help them get what they need. Threes also want that relationship, but they're looking at, okay, I want this relationship so that I can understand how this person can help us move this forward. Right.
Mm.
And they understand if they don't have the relationship, it's going to be harder to move things forward. Like they understand you have to have that rapport, which is why that ability to shapeshift, morph, whatever term you want to use there, why that ability is important. Because it's like, how can I meet this person here so that they can understand, or I can understand honestly where they see this going, and then we can work this together to move this forward. Because again, it's it's all about, are we moving things forward?
Yes, that is always
So
the question.
are we doing something?
Is something being done? Is something happening? Um, Another one that's on our list is, and this is a real conversation that comes up, because I think again, stereotypically, just knowing the surface level of a three, we think, oh wow, threes must be really influential, great, could be great salespeople, because of their ability to. I also talk about threes. I don't know how you feel about this, Dee, but I also talk about threes having a little PR agency inside of them. They just have this ability to kind of position things in a outstanding way, and they're really great at kind of pitching ideas, crafting a polished message, a compelling message. We talked about their ability to deliver results. So, that's kind of that stereotypical, like, oh yeah, you would be great in sales for this. And that is true. And I also think that twos can be great at sales or client facing type of work because of their ability to build relationships, like you were
Your
just talking
relationships,
about,
yeah.
read people, and really make people feel like they care. And I think it's because they do care.
Yeah, no, it's twos. So to your point, threes and twos together doing that kind of work, fantastic, because twos are really good at not only reading people, but also making sure that people feel like they matter.
Yeah.
Um, and threes want that, but at the same time, for threes, they put that secondary to trying to get things done. So when you have threes and twos working together in those spaces, it gives it a good balance. Because again, it's not something that I feel the threes will push back on as long as they can see like, oh well, you know what, you're right. And that's going to help us move this forward. Right. So it's easier for them to again embrace that emotional temperature
Yeah.
when that comes up.
Yeah. Another thing that we had talked about and has come up also in real world conversations is, um, the threes are so good. This isn't about trying to make one, be like the other. It's just reminding us of the strengths of each and how to dial it in so we're working well together. But the threes are so goal oriented and they do move pretty quickly. I think that they have a tendency, like the leap in the net will appear type of energy. Let's just move fast. And sometimes threes could move so fast and be so focused on the goal that they lose the people that are working on the project with them, or they kind of forget to bring everybody along without no mal intentions, without realizing it. And I think a two just tends to be very dialed into, like, okay, here's where we're going. How's everybody doing with it? How's everybody feeling? And like, let's check in.
Just check in.
Yeah. And so that can be, twos can help threes kind of make sure that on our path to being outstanding, we're bringing everybody along and kind of making sure, just incorporating the human element into also hitting our goals. I don't know if you would add anything to that.
I would say spot on. Twos are really good with again, I look at balance, right? We all have our strengths. However, if overused, they become detriments to us. And so twos help threes to remember that piece of like, yes, I want to do this. Am I moving too fast? Do I need to slow down? Who's all with me? Because one of the things that is stereotypical when folks think about threes is they think threes are very self-centered. Um, but when threes are thinking about getting things done, they're thinking about how that's going to actually be good for everyone.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's what the mindset is. Like, well, if we do this, this is how it's going to benefit all of us, which is why they want to get to it so quickly. Like, we're like, okay, how can we do this so that we all can enjoy, the fruits of this labor?
Yeah.
But to your point, sometimes we can start moving so fast that we forget this is for everyone. And then how do we bring everyone with us so that they can enjoy it? So anyway, so I will say you pretty spot on to that at times from a stereotypical standpoint.
Right.
And I do want to point that out. When we talk about any of these, we're talking about stereotypically, right? There's always the balances, there's always the spectrum
Yes.
of what that can look like.
Yes. And something just for the sake of time, is, and we don't talk about it a lot on this podcast. I want to start doing more of it, but we have talked about the instinctual biases, and that will
Hmm.
also flavor the expression of each of these and be very different. Some
Exactly.
being better than others. And then, it's almost like almost the exact opposite sometimes of how a three can help a two be more effective. Because one of the overused strengths that we'll talk about with a two is sometimes they can, because they care about people so much and are so attuned to that, they can get over involved or over worry about the relationship or the relationship piece of it, and then lose sight of the goal or the task at hand. So the three can kind
Yep.
of help them stay
Oh yeah,
focused.
no, that's why I say it's a good balance between the two because that's where the threes can come in and say, yes, definitely hear you about that relationship. To your point, unfortunately, twos can overinvest in those relationships to the point that it's starting to, you know, be detrimental to the outcomes. And so there's the threes can say, because we're outcome focused and we're looking and saying, okay, yes, we need to keep this in mind and we do have a goal that we need to get to, right? And also, I guess we do for anyone who's just jumping in, letting them know we're talking about this from a work perspective.
Right.
Um, right. And so we have goals, we have outcomes, we have results that we need to get to. And so threes having that focus, that's where we can balance off with the two and say, okay, yes, relationships matter, and so does this goal. What do we need to do to move forward? Right. And asking those questions. What do we need to do to move forward to get this person to be heard, felt, and met,
Mm.
and get to the solution?
And get to it. Yes. Okay. And then kind of transitioning into potential, this is not a guaranteed, but potential points of friction, which I think, is important to talk about so that you can kind of reflect on either, oh, this is why I maybe keep butting heads with this person, or, oh, you know what, I'm getting ready to go into a project, with this particular person. So let's kind of get ahead of it. Probably won't avoid it completely, but maybe minimize it or at least understand it and can repair it, easily. So, in your experience, what is one of the most common, or what's an example of where these two can kind of butt heads in the workplace?
I'll go with the segue that's easy, which is what we just talked about, people versus performance. Um, that's probably one of the easiest ones because again, we just finished kind of touching on that, which is when one is looking at, hey, putting the people first, the other one's putting performance first. Um, One of the things that I think is going to be important as we talk about friction points is the reason why we're doing this work is to bring awareness. And the reason why that we're trying to bring awareness is so that people can have intentionality,
Mm,
right? And so with that, if I know, three and I'm working with two, And I know this is going to be the thing. One, I can be intentional about making sure I'm keeping the people in mind as I'm trying to get performance. Um, and so that intentionality, I think, will help with that. But that's the one that I would say is the probably top of mind right now because of where we already were
Yeah.
speaking about.
And that's a real one, you know?
Yeah,
Um, and just something to keep in mind about yourself. And then if you do feel frustration, just understanding where that other person is kind of coming from. Another one that, I mean, this is such a small thing, but can be end up turning into a big thing. And one of the most common conversations around this dynamic that I see is just even around sitting down for a meeting. And maybe this is a little related here, but this is maybe just a little bit more specific. Where the two sits down and has a tendency to want to say, like, hi, how are you? How was your weekend? How's your bike training? Just again, that rapport building. And then, hey, okay, I feel like we've built trust, we've built, some rapport. Now we can jump into what we need. Whereas sometimes the threes will say, we just got to jump into it. We have a timeline, we have an agenda. It's not that I don't care about you. It's just I also care about being on time, and this wasn't part of it. So there can be some frustrations, whether it's in a large meeting and you know, that dynamic, or it's a one-on-one, and one's feeling like I just want to connect and I feel like I'm being dismissed because we have to get started. And the other one might think, gosh, you're making us run behind. You're not being aware or considerate of my time or our time. And so that one I hear a lot, that's so little. And so one of the things we've talked about before is adding in, like, I think you and I have maybe even talked about this, Dee, like 5 or 10 minutes. And you do this to me because I do this and I'm not a two, where I'm like, oh, I want to talk. I want to know what's going on. And so I know there's been times where we've done these and you've just added a little buffer in, and that makes it easy. And then we can connect and we can stay on time.
that goes back to intentionality, right? Like I know, I'm like, okay, I'm about to meet with Sarah. I already know that Sarah's gonna want to start this off, and we're gonna be talking, and and honestly, that is a part of what I like to do as well. Like I like to connect because again, I want to build a rapport so that we can move forward. It's just that we're doing it for different reasons.
Yeah.
And so building in that intentionality so that we can have that space and understanding what that is versus, oh, here's what I want. And that's where I think we have to be careful in that space of when we get stuck in what we want versus um, from an
Yeah.
individual we versus the collective we, right? What are we
Yes.
trying to do? What do we all need? And I think when threes keep that in mind, they're better at having that space to converse and connect because
Mm-hmm.
they understand I need this in order to move this forward.
Mm-hmm.
Versus twos are just it doesn't matter about whether we're using it to move it forward. It's
It's like,
just
I
for
need
them
this.
it's
Yeah.
I need this to connect, right? I
Yeah.
need this to feel like we are people, like we're again,
Trust. Yeah.
there's trust, there's people. Everyone I want them
Yeah.
to feel like they're being seen. And again, threes are like, yeah, that's nice. And
And yes.
so
Yeah. Oh, that's like one of my favorite examples. And I think along the same lines is even with email communication. I think threes and eights, probably ones too, maybe fives in there too, are just more like, you know, dear D, or just, hey D, can you get me the report by 5?
can you get
And
this to me?
yeah, yeah. And then the 2, the 9, maybe, some of the others are like, wait a minute, where's the, like, hi, how are you? How's your day going? Like, it's like, are they mad at me? And so even that dynamic can play out in, just little things like an email.
I'm just laughing because you know, again, we talk about I share, it's a spectrum, right? And I call it the growth spectrum. And I remember being in that space where that is exactly how I would send messages or how I would go to someone's office and I would just walk in and be like, hey, so with the one thing,
Yeah.
right? And now we get these looks. And then, I would have conversations with people because again, threes like to build a rapport. And then folks who felt, I would say safe enough to say, hey D, um, you just walked in my office, no hello, no.
I'm good.
I
Thanks for
go,
asking. How are you?
yeah. And I go, did I do that? And so I, again, like learned over the years, like, oh no. And it doesn't cost anything to do that, right? So I learned to be like, oh, hey, to the point where, and I won't get into this, but to the point where it has now become a part of how I show up
Yeah.
when I work in organizations. And I will intentionally set my bag down uh, and walk to everyone's office to say good morning,
Mm,
hello, before I even jump into my emails. Because I know once I jump into my emails and once I jump into work and working, I get in work mode, those things will not be there in the way that I want them to be there. So
yeah.
I intentionally make sure that, you know what, here's what I'm going to do before I do anything else is I'm going to make sure I connect with people because that is important.
Mm.
Um, so again, just having that intentionality there to say, this is what I'm going to do so that this happens and make space for that.
And I think that's just a good reminder because I think many of us listening are still on a quest to understand, am I this type or this type? I think I'm this type or this type. And it's so easy to look at behaviors and be like, well, I do check on people. I do say, hi, how are you? Kind of thing, like you're saying. And so we just like there are tendencies of each behavior, but it or of each type, but ultimately it goes to that core motive, like what you're saying.
And
I'm doing this
again,
so
it's
that.
exactly. It's not in that sense. It's not what you're doing. It's why you're doing
Uh-huh.
it.
Uh-huh. Yep.
It's like why,
Um,
but why are you doing that though?
but why? Well, which is another point we have here on our list is around both types wanting and valuing being recognized, which I think most
Mm,
people can relate to. But again, it's for different things. And stereotypically, the two, and I see this, it's not about, twos aren't wanting to put out bad work by any means, but I think if they had the preferences, I really want to be recognized for what I'm doing for people, how I've showed up, how I've gone above and beyond for the team, for my people. Whereas the three, that recognition is more about like my deliverables, what I accomplished, the milestones that I hit. And so I think that there could be some friction in, again, just seeing it through our lens and recognizing what we value versus recognizing what is also important to the other person.
yeah, for sure. Twos, I say twos want to be valued for their labor, but it's emotional labor. It's not, it's not necessarily the physical labor. I mean, that'll come in too. Because again, they don't want to be taken for granted in that space, but it's really about the emotionality that was tied to it, right? I did this because of this, right? Because again, if you think about if they're doing it from a space of here's what you need, then they were doing it from a space of I'm caring for you, right? So
Yeah.
that natural caregiver kind of
Yeah.
energy. And so it's for them, it's a lot more that's invested in it from a heart space
Mm,
versus, a three. Yeah, we same thing. I want my labor, but it's more of a physical labor or mental labor of the work that I put into this to get this great outcome. And sometimes that that doesn't blend, right? It
yeah.
doesn't come together to where, you know, threes may not I won't say they don't value, but they don't acknowledge the emotional labor,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes.
right? So it's
Yes.
not that they don't value it, they just may not, call it out because they don't think about it.
Yeah, it just, yeah, it's not, they're intentionally ignoring it. It's just, again, it's kind of that, I love the lens analogy because it really is like, well, this is how I'm seeing it. And then somebody else is seeing it in a different way, the same thing.
Hmm.
Okay, I have two more, and one we've already touched on, but I just want to underscore, and if there's anything else you would add, because I think this is a gift of the three, but twos and other types can sometimes view the three, as you mentioned in the very beginning, as inauthentic. Twos can maybe feel, and we're talking about building trust, can maybe feel like trust is deteriorates a little bit when they see the threes kind of turn it on, or their ability to shift and adapt. And the two might see it as, well, gosh, I don't really know who this person is, or they're inconsistent, or they're very performative. I've heard people say that
Hmm.
about threes, and a three would say, interesting. Again, I am just I'm doing what I need to do to get the job done, to be effective. And so I want to talk about, I wanted to underscore that because threes are not, intentionally being deceptive or,
No.
whatever. It's for these reasons.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, I shared that in the very beginning as we started chatting about this, about these two styles, which is exactly that. Like from a three's perspective, it's how can I be most effective? And if I show up like this and that's not connecting, then that's not effective. Um, and so how can I still genuinely be me, but show up this way? And it reminds me, uh, I think you and I've had this conversation when I was in the film business. I actually had a director once tell me after an audition, he said, "Hey, Demetrius, do you mind if I give you some advice?" And I was like, "Sure." And that's another thing about threes. Threes actually do like to grow, so we love
Mhm.
feedback.
Okay.
Uh, depending on how we get it, but we do love it. And he said, when you are auditioning, he said, try not to act and try to be more you, but you in this situation. And when he first said that to me, I didn't get it because I'm like, I'm an actor. Why would you tell me not to act? It's like this doesn't make
Confused.
sense to
Yeah.
me. Right? This seems counterintuitive. I'm an actor that you don't want me to act.
Okay.
But then when I started looking at a lot of really good actors who repeatedly get roles, and sometimes we even say, well, they're typecast, like they always play the same type of roles. It's because they're going into it a lot of times and they're like, hey, this is me in this role. So, like, this is me as a cop. This is me as a. So, when I think about this space from that three perspective, it's kind of the same thing. It's like, oh, I'm still being me, but I'm being me with this group of professionals
Mhm.
versus this group of professionals.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's still being that authentic self,
Mhm.
but again, able to mold to a space that can be effective from a communication standpoint. And I get it a lot. I hear a lot of times people say, what's the term? Code switching,
Okay. Yes, I've heard that.
right? What they call it code switching. And like, oh, you're really good at code switching. And I go, you mean I'm really good at effective communication? Because that's how I looked at it. I'm not code switching because it's not a thing where, in that case, when I talked about intentionality, it's not a thing where I'm like intentionally I'm going to do this. It's actually a natural thing that when I'm in this space, here's how I communicate.
Yeah.
Like, I communicate like this here because it's effective. It gets whatever thing that I'm trying to get done, it gets it done and I'm good.
Yes. Well, and I know this isn't like part of the conversation today, but this is one of the biggest differences I see when people struggle between am I a three or am I an eight? Is
Mm,
threes are just, not that eights cannot do it. Again, they absolutely can. I just think it, like a three, it's just like your natural, like, who do I need to be? What's the situation? Who do I need to be? Whereas an eight has an initial, I think, response to just like, this is who I am. Take it or leave it. And obviously they finesse that over time and depending on the role, the culture, of course, like the corporate culture,
Yeah,
you have to. But um, I see that as one of the differences, just your thinking about how you can be more effective and the shape shifting piece.
yeah. I mean, you're very nice when you shared how that eight comes across thinking that because eight's I'm like, this is who I am. Take it or leave it.
Take it or
Like,
leave it. It's a you problem. If you,
this is exactly. Oh, what is
oh,
it? What is I heard this eight say, I love this. He's like, this is an issue, not an ish me.
ah! We don't need to give the eight, so no more, no, any more ammunition, but that is a good one.
I know, but when I heard it, I was like, wow. I was like, okay, all right.
You're not wrong.
You're
You're
not wrong.
not wrong. Okay, the last one I wanted to touch on before we move on from this section, and you had alluded to it, was around feedback. Is there
Mm,
anything, because this is also, I think anytime we're giving feedback, it's typically not comfortable. And that's when these types of things really show up in difficult conversations and uncomfortable situations. It's like when everything's going great, you don't really notice these as much. And feedback, I think, is always a point, whether it is official feedback or just like, hey, kind of feedback. I guess informal feedback. And you had said that the threes really have a tend to appreciate feedback. And I
yes.
think depending on how it's delivered. And then I think the two sometimes can struggle with feedback because it feels so personal. So do you have any additional insight on that? Because I know that as a three and then working with twos or having twos in your life, like how do you navigate a feedback situation?
Yeah, I would say the big things here is different. So threes, because we love feedback and what that looks like, um, and we come from that efficiency standpoint of let's get to it and talk about the thing. We have to remember twos, on the other hand, remember their relationship first, which means if you're giving anyone that's giving feedback to a two, remember connect before correct.
Mm, mm, okay.
Right? Is there a relationship built? Have we built that? And when I say relationship, meaning have we built a space to where we're actually connecting with them on that emotional space first? So empathy. Are we sharing empathy first and then saying, hey, here's the thing? Um, and then with threes, and actually I would say I'll back up with both of these folks, and I would say anyone, ask permission to give feedback,
Okay. Great tip.
which is something that I don't feel a lot of folks do. Right? We say, "Hey, I got some feedback for you," and then we just and then we blurt it out.
Can you give us some feedback? Okay, great.
Right? Versus saying, "Hey, I have some feedback for you." I talk about feedback as a gift, and so I even at times say, "Hey, I have a gift for you."